I think the topic of outer space being fake and gay is a really good topic. One of the better conspiracy topics out there, and I think it's one that anyone can wake up to if they can think for themselves, and it honestly helps if you are a science-minded person. And I've mentioned it before how it seems like a lot of Christians in particular, I mean Christian women in particular, they like shy away from anything sciency and outer spacey, and they're just like, oh, I don't know anything about that stuff. I think because part of them can feel that it's not right, and so it's just like, no, no, no. If I pretend it's not there, I can go on with my life without actually thinking about the spaceball stuff very much. But for others of us, we bought into the lie and lived our life believing in the nonsense, and then actually stepped back for a moment and considered that we were being hoaxed, and it it's so much bullshit. It is so bad and unbelievable. And all they have are stories and appeals to authority. And they act like they can control the goalposts. So really all you have to do is, and this is where I love it because it's biblical. The Bible tells you that you have to reject the world, and to be a self-thinker, you really have to reject the world, because the way that the world operates is those in control get to decide how people talk about stuff, and they get to decide the ideas that are deemed factual by those in control. And I think of stuff like trivia, Trivial Pursuit. There's a reason it's called that, because most trivia is a bunch of bullshit at the end of the day. Okay, so I've already blabbered a bunch. I have way too many slides today to get through. Let's see what's in store. I just see this number get thrown out in the wild, and what do you know? It's actually an important number. And I especially see this number when it's like science-y, nerdy stuff. And you'll see why, because there's like a layer of nerdiness to this number. 13.7 billion years. This is always a bold-faced lie. Whenever some authority figure tells you that they can tell you what happened billions of years ago, or they can tell you what happened millions of years ago, or that they can tell you about something that's a million miles away, and they can tell you exactly what it's like if you had a spoonful of it. So the spoon is an interesting symbol, is what you feed children with, or sick people. That's actually a strange Italian trope, that, spoons are for sick people, or yeah, like babies get spoon-fed things. So that you'll see the symbol of a spoon come up a lot when somebody's spoon-feeding you a bunch of BS. Anyways, 137. Let's get to it. 137 is a prime number. It is the 33rd prime number, and this is why you'll see 137 pop up so frequently, because it's the 33rd prime number. And yeah, that's the fact that it's prime numbers. Prime numbers have to do with math and nerdy stuff, so you see this number pop up all the time when it comes to science-y stuff. So what do you know? The age of the universe that they tell us is the 33rd prime number. And that's not the only number that they pick specifically because of its significance. Go check out Sector 33, the NASA app. They love the number 33 because it's all Freemasonry. NASA is just an extension of Freemasonry, and it's just a way for them to siphon all the funds and spend it on pizza, hot dog parties, and that kind of thing. How does NASA get the age of the universe? Globular cluster. We do not know the exact age of the universe, but we believe that it's around 13 billion years, give or take a few billion. And this contradicts what they said in another thing. None of these people will be able to agree because it's all bullshit, and they can change their story whenever they want. Because something over here was saying, with an uncertainty of only 200 million years. So where did this person get the information? And interesting, the 7 and 20 billion years. So the before numbers are kind of coded too, if you know about gematria. Yeah, I guess in 1999 they told us that it was between 7 and 20. And 27 is 3 times 3 times 3. It's 3 cubed. So really, they like cubes, and it's 3 cubed. 3 raised to the 3, which is a 33. Sussing out a star's age. Oh, don't they sound so serious? Have you noticed how a lot of times stuff that's supposed to be sciency, you can tell that it's being written in a infantile or like it's all a joke? Like if this stuff, would they really be trying to be all hip? If these people, it's like they're always trying to make stuff hip. And I say this about medicine too. Medicine and science, they like try to make stuff sexy and shiny, and it's not ever really serious. And people that would be really into this stuff, they wouldn't care so much about the packaging and what stuff, using words like sus, they would feel like that's cringe. But this is just all brainwashing propaganda for the masses, so that's why it's so corny, and we get bozos like Neil deGrasse, Fat Ass Tyson, and that kind of stuff. Oh, look at the pictures. This is how they figure out how old a star is, or whatever. We got the pictures. We have the cartoons. We have the pictures. A spinning wheel. Interesting. There, you know, the needle in the haystack is when they hide a grain of hidden truth inside of their bullshit. A spinning wheel. Big wheel in the sky keeps on turning. In my last Space is Fake and Gay video, I talk about how the sun and the moon do cartwheels through the sky. They rotate like a wheel. They're not balls that like spin. That's why we don't see the other side of the moon, because there is no other side for us to see. It's a flat disc. I'm going to get to some really cool images in a second from my website that shows this kind of stuff. But there you go. What's this method known? Gyrochronology, whatever. We got these cartoons, though, in other cases. What stuff actually looks like through telescopes, I guess, is this a real one from Reddit? Focusing my telescope on Betelgeuse. They aren't what they tell you. You really couldn't see things if they were as far away as NASA says. If you look at the stars, you can tell that it looks more like you have a black dome that has like holes poked in it. It doesn't look like balls that are at varying distances from you. It's all very much at the same distance, and it's because it's optical. It has to do with the firmament. We're not actually seeing the star. We're not actually seeing the moon. When they say the moon's a hologram, they're actually being half true. And you know how the moon follows you around, and like optical illusions follow sometimes? It's because it's a projection. You know how video games work? You take every person, it becomes the center of the sky for that person. And that is actually how reality works. It works in a video game because that's actually how it works in real life. That every single person is its own center they get their own sky, depending on where you are. Because over us there's a dome, and we see things through the dome, and it's like an optical projection. And they're all the same distance too. Have you noticed if you take a pair of binoculars and you like focus in on the moon, the stars are also focused in at that distance. And I think it's because that is where the sky is being rendered for you. And I think that you probably can focus out at more distant things. People have special telescopes that grab more light than you normally could grab, you know, the big wide telescopes. But people need to understand, when you're looking through a telescope, you're looking through lenses. And I think we're already looking through a giant lens, the firmament. So just because you see something, even in a telescope, that doesn't mean that is what it looks like in reality. And I'm sure that a lot of you have seen the P900s of zooming in on a star and it looks like light dancing underwater. Yeah, I think it's because there's waters up there. Let's get through the slides, but, you know, we see this kind of thing mostly. Mostly with outer space, we see this kind of thing. When we're looking at the heavens, I think we should just call them the heavens, anything dealing with the heavens, what percentage is CGI? Obvious that anybody should be able to admit, like not even just how often do we see heaven things, related things, and it's obvious CGI? It's like 99.99% of the time. How often are people stepping outside with a pair of binoculars or with an actual telescope? Not very often. And every news segment starts with a fake spinny ball. Basically every movie you goes to starts with a fake spinny ball. And that is how they get people trapped in this. And expectations influence the way that you actually see things. When you know that it's a starry dome overhead, like it's referenced in the media, there's a lot of people out there that make it clear that they know that the sky is a starry dome. There's a uh, there's a song by some obvious castrati. I forget now. Anyways, when you think it's outer space ball land, it'll look more like that because that's how the mind works. Your expectations influence reality. When you start to wake up to the deception and you understand biblical cosmology and that there's a firmament, it looks more like a dome to you. You can literally see the dome. This is from my website. I've been trying to update my website. I updated it 2 times this month. It doesn't feel like it was a month ago that I updated it, but I guess. Yeah, I wanna share more just like simple examples of outer space being fake. Maybe I'll have some sort of posting simple little things about transvestigation and other topics. But anyways, I have a website, and the following images were taken through a microscope. Doesn't it look exactly like NASA stuff? This looks a lot like Jupiter. But it's skeletal fiber, or like muscle fiber, or I forget exactly. But look, NASA could put this one out and say that's Io or whatever, one of the Jupiter moons. That's literally what they do a lot of times. They're using, because this is a microscope, and this is the answer to, well, why does the stuff up there looks like balls? Well, no, it doesn't actually. It looks like discs, and it looks very similar to looking under microscopes or looking in a pair of binoculars. Sometimes you'll have a pair of binoculars and the light will be in such a strange way that you get these crescent moon looking things. And have you noticed the moon is strange. Sometimes you can't see the black side at all. Sometimes you will not be able to see any part of the black side of the moon. And then other times it's like this, where there's a darkened crescent side, but it's like you can still see it. Have you guys noticed that about the moon? Oh, it works exactly like microscopes work. That's strange. And it shouldn't be strange if you understand that there's a firmament, and that's the lens. I've already said a lot, so I'm just going to fly through the rest of the slides, because I look in detail kind of about a fake telescope satellite. I don't know how much I'll say, but you just have to believe them on everything. If you start to the deeper you dive into, well, how do they actually find the mass of this? How do you actually, you'll see that it's all very flimsy at best, and they're taking data, I'm sure, but you're not allowed to, I couldn't have become an astrophysicist and then collected the data and used that to form my own theories. I would have had to only draw conclusions in the way that they allow you to. And for instance, this kind of thing, because how do you find a mass of a star? They tell us so many ridiculous things just by looking at light in the sky. How can you look at a light in the sky and tell me how massive that object is? They have to have some way to do that. And then, well, part of it is with gravity, which I'll talk about gravity. And gravity is BS. So you would have to assume that everything that they tell you about gravity is true, but don't they even tell us that they don't really understand gravity? And they also tell us that it's the weakest force, which is kind of a hidden and true. That's the needle in the haystack. Gravity doesn't exist. There's just buoyancy, which is interesting because there's water up there. Anyways, how do we figure out the mass of a star? Well, they tell us it has to be a binary star. Well, but don't they tell us the mass about everything? They're not going to say, oh, well, that's not a binary star, so we don't know its mass. They're always going to pretend like they can tell you exactly everything about everything. So we have a Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. So you take your data and you plug it into this diagram that some bozo already made up, and that's how you figure out the mass. Okay. 3-body problem is a real problem. I think this is an instance where they've flooded the media with something. I think of this as why they choose like Madonna for for some satanic puppet on the world stage because they want your mind to go there when you hear the word Madonna. Same thing, three body problem is it's actually a physics thing that proves that all the NASA stuff is just bold-faced lies and made up BS. So I think that's why people have come up with, they want their own three body problem to kind of distract you from researching the real thing. If you Google search three body problem, you're going to be told about a TV series or a book that some Chinese guy wrote. But really what the three body problem tells you is, if you assume gravity is, like, if you're looking at gravity as the force going on, and you have three masses, all it takes is three, and it's chaotic. That means that there's no nice solution. But, you know, look around you in the heavens, it's not chaotic. You can build a building, and the stars will always be in the same exact spot. You'll always be able to see Polaris through the same drilled hole in your building. It'll always line up on the equinox or the solstice. Every time, year after year after year after year after year, if you build something on Earth that's in alignment, it'll keep returning to that same place. That's not chaos. And that's with three masses you get chaos. And NASA will tell you that they can slingshot around this place 5 times, it loops around 5 times and then shoots off, and then it goes to another place and loops around that 16 times and then shoots off. It's crazy. So the thing on the right shows you a stable system of three masses interacting through gravity. And then the one on the left shows you how it normally is. If you have three masses normally interacting through gravity, on the left, that's how they interact, in a chaotic way. Not really anything like my solar system. Okay, I've really already said a lot. We have this telescope that I'm going to look at in the end. So this is the beginning of the end of this video. Gaia, okay, interesting. Euclid, and they talk about Lagrange points, okay. So, I mean, I guess I'll talk about that in a second. They talk about it later. Here we go, it's CGI, complete CGI. They don't even try to hide it with the satellites. I think a lot of times stuff like this, it doesn't even exist. Not even a model exists. Sometimes I think they'll play up the shiny gold paper models. They'll build a model, but I don't think that they're launching it. Rocket launches, it may as well just be 4th of July. It's just a spectacle. And they just shoot them off into the ocean where nobody's going to see it. And they also go horizontal at a very low altitude because there's the firmament. I just want to look at this space agency because I think it's totally fabricated. I think that a lot of times these are just very, very thin. Like, this should be a company that there should be like tons of information on this if they're making this top of the line satellite. But a lot of times it seems like they're fake companies and their shell corporations or whatever are just like very thinly veiled, and they don't really have a lot of depth to it. But of course that's not always the case, because what Freemason fake history people love doing is just building a giant amount of lore about BS. So it kind of depends. Sometimes it'll just seem like something that barely exists and hasn't had a lot of time put into it, and sometimes it seems like somebody really put a lot of work into the hoax. But anyways, it's some joint thing between France and Italy, 33%. I was just clicking around inside the Wikipedia article. I want to look at who are these people involved in this. Current CEO is some Hervé Deray, who replaced Jean-Loic Gall. And look, isn't this just oh man, why is his name escaping me? The Forrest Gump guy, the pedo. That's this guy. I don't know why I can't think of his name. I don't even care. Cape Carnival is where they shoot these things out because they're telling you it's a carnival. Got a lot of spirals going on in the background of this, which is pretty sus. Euclid telescope dazzles with detailed first images of our universe. So dazzle is certainly a pointed word. When you're dazzling somebody, that's usually not like a positive thing. You're using like magic and lights and mirrors to dazzle people while you're doing shady things behind the scenes. That kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier, when a lot of times you'll be reading stuff and you're like, you're talking about this in a very in a way that makes it not seem serious. And anyways, Euclid will probe the history. Okay. Euclid will probe the history of the expansion of the universe by measuring the redshift, okay, galactic shapes. So what I think is an interesting little hidden tidbit in this is that this Euclid telescope is supposed to be figuring out the geometry of the universe. And Euclidean geometry is a flat plane. It's R2, it's flat space is Euclidean geometry. So I think that is a little, yet again, another needle in the haystack here, that the alleged spacecraft, the alleged satellite that's supposed to be probing for the shape of the universe is called Euclid. And Euclidean geometry is flat. Gravitational lensing, it could be a real thing, but all of those Hubble space images are such BS. I don't believe in that stuff at all. But there could be such thing as weird lensing that happens when you're looking really deep into the sky. And I think it probably has to do with the fact that the firmament itself is a lens. So they're going to talk about dark matter and blah. Notice how that when wacky, weird stuff happens in science, they'll never say, oh, well, we were totally wrong about what we thought these things were. They'll just invent some new thing. Well, it's dark matter, instead of just admitting that their model is a bunch of BS. The curvature, so curvature of space-time, again, this thing is called Euclid, which I think is interesting. It emerged from two mission concept, one coming out of two. It's kind of an interesting idea. Dune, space. Here, to measure the geometry of the universe. And again, Euclidean geometry is flat. Here's some more cool CGI. Where's the selfie stick? Or a lot of times NASA had no problem getting the cameraman out there somewhere. But on these ones, how many billions of dollars or hundreds of millions go into this and they can't get us a real picture of them? We just get CGI. And this, they don't even talk about it as if, have you noticed that this happens a lot of times with space stuff? They don't even say that it's like an obvious CGI thing, but they should, right? Is this the Euclid spacecraft? Why don't they say like a representation of the Euclid spacecraft, or a lot of times they say an artistic interpretation. They just say, this is the Euclid spacecraft. This is it. It's the CGI. You want to see the solar panels? Here they are. They're CGI right here. This isn't an artistic representation. This is it. This is what you get. That's how I interpret that. A lot of 30s going on. Lagrangian point, L2, which is just going to be some mathematical thing that could happen in reality, I guess, if what they were saying was true, but none of it is. Gravity is just buoyancy, and this place is actually flat, and you can't go out there. You can't actually corroborate any of their claims. You can't do your own experiment to confirm that the sun is as far away as they say. To confirm that, you would have to be able to measure that, to actually go out with the tape measure and do that. But nobody's getting past the firmament, and you would have to have total faith in the clown bozos that space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. None of us are going to be able to ever, they have control over sending people to space. So nobody, that's not science. Science is reproducible. You should be able to have an experiment that could prove these things. This was interesting. This was really interesting. Because a lot of times they'll write into the story something crazy was going to happen, but we were super smart and we fixed it. Upon receiving the initial images, a problem surfaced as scientists discovered a small gap in the spacecraft's hull. You would think that would be catastrophic, to have a hole in outer space, allegedly. This gap allowed sunlight to infiltrate the imaging sensor, resulting in a degradation of image quality. You would assume that being exposed to direct sunlight in outer space and when you weren't supposed to, you would assume that that would be like catastrophic, that that would just totally fry whatever. And again, the integrity of the thing. How do you even have a hole in your spacecraft? There's a hole in my bucket. To tackle this issue, words like that. See, this is what they talk about these things in ways where it doesn't seem serious. We're going to tackle this issue, guys. It seems like some stupid low-level manager talking to their team. They adjusted the spacecraft's orientation by a few degrees, effectively blocking sunlight from entering the identified gap. This corrective measure successfully resolved the problem. During its nominal mission, and I looked up the word nominal, it's existing in name only. So they're telling you that this only exists in name. It's not real. It's only this story that they're writing. That's a type of disclosure when they tell you exactly what they're doing. I just want to put this out there because it's an interesting idea a friend of mine had, that the Milky Way, when you can really see the stars, it's pretty rare to be able to, you have to live out in the middle of nowhere for that. One of my friends said that the stars kind of rushed to the center, and that was in the Great Flood because the windows on high were opened up. I wonder if that did kind of rearrange the heavens a little bit and make it more of a, like a scar looking thing, the Milky Way. I don't know. I haven't seen it enough in my life, but it's an interesting theory, so I'll put it out there. With its wide sky coverage and its catalogs of billions of stars and galaxies, the scientific value of data collected by the mission goes beyond the scope of cosmology. I think that that's kind of a telling sentence too. How it's beyond the scope of cosmology. This is just imagination land. Look at this cool image straight out of Star Trek. I've seen this Star Trek episode. Euclid scans across the night sky using a step and stare method, combining separate measurements to form the largest cosmological survey ever conducted in the visible and near infrared. Cool CGI on that one. That looks like a pyramid shape that's missing the capstone. To me, it's kind of subtle. Here we go. Early commissioning test. These are some cool, BS. I wouldn't trust anything that you can't see yourself through an optical telescope. Grism mode. Sounds weird. Who knows? A lot of this stuff does kind of look like watery, though. I don't know. Again, I'm not... if I had all the money in the world, I guess I could start investing in some interesting telescopes. But again, a lot of telescopes that, the really wide, like where the telescope looks really wide, it's because it's like collecting more light. You're changing the way things look when you use optical instruments. Ever notice some people take photographs really well? It's like they look really good. They look in photographs, they photograph up. I've talked about this, and honestly, this kind of goes into transvestigation. I tend to photograph up, and my wife tends to photograph down. Like, she looks worse in pictures than she looks in real life, and I tend to look a lot better in pictures than I look in real life. And a lot of that has to do with bone structure, and models have certain bone structures. Have you noticed how a lot of models, they look kind of weird in real life, but they take pictures and you're like, oh yeah, you photograph really well. Same thing with the heavens. If you're looking through telescopes, if you're taking images of things, maybe you've tried to take pictures of the sky and you've noticed it never looks right. It doesn't look right. And that's because lenses influence reality. You're not looking at real life anymore. You're altering it through looking through lenses and stuff. But it can give us ideas for what's going on. But have your own ideas. What do you think's up there? I believe in biblical cosmology and that there's water up there. I think that's why what they tell us are comets. I think it looks exactly like a flashlight being shown underwater. And yeah, come up with your own ideas. And the Book of Enoch has some very interesting descriptions of the heavens. Maybe I'll talk about that one video. Hope you enjoyed this video. God bless everyone.